Hey everybody, Ramdian and Black with you here in downtown Toronto, Play Dead Studios, talking about UFC 211 that goes down May 13th in Dallas, Texas. A super cool fight, 155 pounds. I'm assuming you're really jazzed about this
Pretty
fight.
jazzed.
Eddie Alvarez taking on Dustin Poirier. Tremendous battle. Dustin Poirier is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC's roster. Eddie Alvarez, probably one of my... I know it's when I see, it doesn't sound like it's that important when you say top 20 favorite fighters of all time. I don't know where he is on that list of top 20 favorite, but Eddie Alvarez, one of my top 20 favorites, top 25 favorites.
25.
20, 25. Is he 15? He could
be top 10 for me.
You know what I mean? When you think about all the great fighters, the reason wherever he fits on the list, Eddie Alvarez he brings a level of intensity and commitment, and you know that he hasn't neglected any part of his training leading up to a fight. And who he is.
What he is. Yeah. What is in his skin and his blood.
Yeah.
That's what we watch.
That's what we watch. You know? That's what we watch. So, but Dustin Poirier is cut from the same cloth. Mm-hmm. He's that type of guy. The thing that I liked about Dustin Poirier in this fight, there seems to be a level of pissed offness that Eddie Alvarez has, but it seems that Dustin Poirier might not have a complete control of that pissed offness.
Yeah, he's an interesting one too. I mean, sometimes we're going to talk about the technical, sometimes we'll talk about the strategy, sometimes we'll talk about the tools, all kinds of physicality, mind. But this one, it's just who they are. You know, what they are is in and of itself a reason to watch the fight. We're having a killer time getting back together and talking about fights. And I'm having fun doing stuff with Mark. I'm traveling around doing... I'm loving my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's one thing that I'm still sad or I'm deeply missing, and that's the ability to build the breakdowns. I haven't figured that out yet. Because as you know, I created something called the SAP Alvarez scale. In celebration of Eddie's great fights, it'll always be called the SAP Alvarez scale, no matter what Eddie becomes as he changes in his life. But Dustin Poirier would be a great one to examine because the SAP Alvarez scale charts your willingness and ability to tolerate extreme suffering and your risk-taking behavior. And what I found fascinating about analyzing these aspects of somebody is that was the beginning of really starting to understand how much change is available to these fighters and how a growth mindset can shape them according to the needs of the fight. And Dustin Poirier has very much changed. We know a story of guys getting into a fight in a bar, and as soon as Poirier realized there was a fight, he was
he's ready to go.
Nothing happened. He's a professional athlete. He's not going to put himself in any risk. But that somebody was there going, you could just see how desperately this guy
no moves were made.
But how desperately he was hoping to be involved in human conflict.
Because as soon as I've personally seen this before, as soon as somebody threw the first punch, he'd be there. Yeah. He'd be laying people out.
Because what's
that's in him.
That's Eddie too. They're fighters. We know these people.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the time, that's in a guy. You worked as a doorman for many years. Yeah. That's in a guy who has no ability to fight, and he wants to, and he'll get killed. But these guys focus that for good. I don't know Dustin Poirier, and in fact, I didn't watch that one documentary, but you said it was great.
Really good.
Land or something, right? And I'm under the impression that he didn't exactly live a perfectly well-chosen teenage and young adult life until he found fighting.
It doesn't really get into the his serious backstory.
Don't you get that feeling? Yeah. That fighting was the thing that gave him a centered purpose in life. Yeah. And he's a family man now. He's a businessman. He is a smart guy. He's an entertainer. He's making a great living. He's living his dream. But somewhere in him is still that guy who wants to fight everybody.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to him after the fight in Quebec City, that crazy one that he had. With Corsani. And they're smashing, one guy's down, the other guy's hurt. And I said to him after, I'm like, and no offense to Corsani, I'm a huge fan of his, loved watching him fight, and he is skilled. But we knew where Dustin was at, and I just kind of pulled him aside. I wanted to know the answer. Sometimes we don't ask these things on camera because these will answer our curiosities that help us explore things in a different way. And I'm like, man, Dustin, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, bro, what's up? I said, you could have just moved your feet and jabbed that guy's face off until he got over aggressive and taken him down and triangled him, or mounted triangled him, or beat him up on the ground. He could,
because he's a skill guy.
Yeah, yeah. And he said, yeah, I could totally do that, but this is how I want to fight. And he kind of was looking at me like, you can't understand this. And I can't, because when I've competed on any level, I'm the opposite. I need to solve the problems. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be in there, getting smashed in the face in front of lighting up an arena of people chanting his name as he feels. But over time, he has somewhat trained that out of himself, purposefully, because he felt it would give him a longer career. It would make him more money. He would be there for his family. There's many reasons to do that. But deep inside, that's still there.
What's awesome about Poirier is he's channeled that into his skill. Is even, like, you just look at the Joe Duffy fight and his beatdown of Joe Duffy. And again, if you understand how good Joe Duffy is, it makes that performance just all the more exciting, because Poirier has the ability to be ornery when he fights, but he can channel it into skill and still beat you down. Yeah,
and all this is true. And so if he was fighting an inanimate carbon rod, everything we've just described, I would be thinking to myself, oh yeah, I gotta see it. But he's fighting Eddie Alvarez, right? And Eddie Alvarez is incredibly self-aware as well. And so I've spoken to him a few times since I created this Sap Alvarez scale, which was created because he was the ultimate risk taker who would put himself in personal harm and through my study of different ways and reasons that people behave this way, we came to the conclusion, and I spoke with Dr. David Klonsky, a psychology professor that we talked to a lot about it, and others, and he's a sensation seeker. He lived some people jump out of airplanes, some people, run with bulls, some people, who knows. He fights in cages. And that's why the Sap Alvarez scale, I had Bob Sapp on one side, gonna go get paid with a feather boa in Japan and then tap out as quick as possible, no judgment. If Crow Cop kicked me in the head, I would also, if my neurological system still worked, I would hit it on the ground. But Eddie, on the other hand, was a thrill-seeking sensation seeker, there to push himself to the limit because he knew without question that he was gonna be more man than you. He could, and the first time I threw out a quote of him saying, I'm here to give it and I'm here to take it and enjoy it all the same, and that was true. He also changed. He evolved. Donald Cerrone, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, these guys are bigger, they're stronger. The beating he took on that, and there's not that many of the shots, but when you look at it, there was knees to the sternum with which Donald would have destroyed this piano easily. Just smashed right through it, white and black, the keys flying through the air, that Eddie took. And there were leg kicks that would absolutely, we would be hospitalized for many years after one of those. He took those. And he looked after and he said, I want to be able, and they all say,
I don't want to be drooling.
Yeah, I don't want to be drooling, and I want to win, and I want to be the world champion. So he had to override that human nature it's a rare human nature, that Alvarez nature, to win. And he was capable of it as well. So there'll be moments of intelligence, there'll be moments of strategy. They're both brilliant fighters, but when the time comes that they need to be the bigger, better, fiercer, more, the kill what you eat man in the fight, they'll both rise to that. So it's a really brilliant fight. For it to be the main event on free television, on TSN in Canada and Fox Sports 1 probably in the States, I'm hoping I'll be there, man. There's a chance I'll be in Vienna, but I'm really hoping I'll be. I mean, I'd love to be commentating in Vienna. Some brilliant, super awesome fights. There's nothing as, sitting next to you when I get to, and when we call fights, there's nothing more brilliant. But this is a card that wouldn't you just give anything to be there?
UFC 211, a 155-pound battle. How will Eddie Alvarez respond after that loss against Conor McGregor? Dustin Poirier, the Diamond, always brings it. It is going to be tremendous mixed martial arts action going down in Dallas, Texas on May 13th.